With graphics card prices being extraordinarily high over the last couple of years, gamers have turned to the Nvidia GT1030 as an entry-level budget graphics card for 1080p 60 FPS gaming. And these cards can be had for right around $100 to $150, depending if you're going to buy used, refurbished, or new. I was able to get this MSI variant for $125 on eBay, and this card is manufacturer refurbished. Now, some of the really key points of the GT1030 is that it's a 30-watt card with no external power requirements, and a lot of them come in this low-profile form factor, which makes them perfect for just throwing in an old small form factor office PC with an i7 or an i5 and being able to build a gaming PC for under $300 while hitting that 1080p or even 1440p and 60 FPS or higher number in a lot of games, which we will see shortly. But there are definitely some limitations to this GT1030. First of all, it's a few years old now, running on the Pascal architecture from Nvidia. It has right around 380 CUDA cores, 2 gigs of GDDR5 memory, which is definitely its biggest limitation. 2 gigs is not going to cut it for a lot of games today. It's impossible to run games like Halo Infinite or other games that require high texture packs that are just not able to be sustained on a 2 gigabytes worth of VRAM on a graphics card. You need at least 4 gigs, which is why a lot of the entry-level cards of today are coming out with 4 gigs of VRAM. So that's its biggest limitation besides its age. However, there's a new competitor out on the street from Nvidia, and that is the Nvidia Quadro T400. Now, although this isn't a gaming graphics card, it is a Quadro, it has Quadro in the name, it still performs really, really well in games. So the T400 is actually an RTX card running on the Turing architecture from Nvidia. It has the exact number of CUDA cores as the GT1030 at 380 or so. Still has 2 gigs of VRAM, but there are a 4 gigabyte variant of the T400 as well as a 4 gig version called the T600 as well as a T800 version with even more VRAM. And this VRAM goes from GDDR5 on the GT1030 to GDDR6 on the T400, meaning double the memory bandwidth on this card versus the GT1030. And that memory bandwidth, as well as just the increased performance of the newer generation of Nvidia architecture, means way better performance in games, even though this thing is not optimized for gaming. Now, one of the very small kind of inconveniences or limitations of the T400 actually its video outputs. So you only have 3 mini DisplayPort outs on the T400, and it does come with 3 mini DisplayPort to DisplayPort adapters. So you will need a monitor that supports DisplayPort, but a small inconvenience when it comes to the outputs of this card. But it still outperforms the GT1030 in every single benchmark. I put them through, and here's a quick run through of some of those benchmarks. So as you guys can see from those benchmarks, the T400 outperforms the GT1030 and all of them doubling or even tripling the performance of the GT 1030 in both games as well as synthetic benchmarks like 3D Mark Firestrike. And all of that for the pretty much same price point. So again, this one I got for $125 on eBay. This was $140, $145 on Amazon from, not Amazon, but some of you may be wondering, does the T400 run way hotter than the GT 1030 then? You know, it's outputting way more FPS. Does that mean it's gonna run hotter? So after throwing it through those tests, the averages on both of these cards are very, very similar, with the T400 sitting in the upper 60s, while the GT 1030 was sitting in the lower 60 degrees Celsius range in all of those benchmarks. So overall, temperatures aren't going to get that hot. Both of these cards are only 30-watt cards. They're not pulling 300 watts like a RTX 3080 or anything like that, so you don't have to be too concerned about temperatures even in a small form factor case. So overall, it's really hard to recommend a GT 1030 in 2022, but should you buy the Quadro T400 in 2022? My answer is yes. If you're looking to buy a budget or get in on a budget opportunity for a gaming PC, this paired with a small form factor PC like the HP 600 G1 makes a great option to get into 1080p gaming at 60 to 120 FPS, as we saw in both Fortnite and Valorant. But those are the titles you're going to be limited to. Fortnite, Valorant, CSGO, some of those lighter end titles. You're definitely not going to be able to run games like Halo Infinite or Cyberpunk or anything like that, being that this only does still have that 2 gigs of VRAM that does limit some games from one, even loading, and two, hitting a high enough FPS to actually play it. So overall, I would definitely recommend this if you do have a lower end budget and you still want to get into PC gaming. But especially with cards like a GTX 1050 Ti or 1650 hitting the secondhand market for $300 to $400, those cards are now, it's just extremely difficult to recommend something like that for the price. Whereas something like a T600 with 4 gigs of VRAM might be a little bit more worth it at $250. So there's not too many options right now for budget GPUs just due to all of the pricing that's going on. So again, if you're on a tight budget, just forget about the GT 1030 and go with the Nvidia Quadro T400. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down below. And if you haven't already, get subscribed to the channel, turn on post notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next one.